Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Snakes and Ladders. How are you, buddy?
I'm very well, thank you. The sun is shining, the birds are singing. What's not to
Oh,
like?
don't tell me that. It's absolutely not here. It's miserable. I came
Yeah.
I came to the office on the motorbike in nothing but a jumper, and as soon as I went outside, I was like, I am going to get so wet when I just know it's going to rain, and it's going to wait. It's going to store it up for me. I'm going to leave the office, and it's going to go like that and just drown me. So there's
Well,
something to look forward to.
I've got good news for you. It's blissful weather all week, except for when you arrive here, and it's then going to be thunderstorming.
It's a proper welcome home.
Exactly.
Oh, fantastic. Oh dear, I tell you, it's felt like a quite an intense week here. I barely know what I'm
Yeah.
doing. This is a podcast. Yes, that's it. Right, I better look at my agenda, which means I've got to put my glasses back on. As always, we're going to start with a stunning, eloquent, insightful, insert adverb here, rundown of the market update this week. What's been going on, buddy?
Well, I mean, the talk about a busy week. You couldn't write it. So this week is big tech earnings week, and four of the largest companies in the world decided to report their earnings on the same day. So you had Alphabet, Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft all put their numbers out last night. So the poor old analysts and market commentators would have just been scrambling at whatever o'clock in the morning it was here. But yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
busy old week for the markets.
And then we've got
And
Apple tonight, right? Do you think that
Apple
was
tonight.
deliberate? Why follow? I didn't really get whether that was deliberate or coincidence, but one assumes at this level it's all pretty calculated.
Yeah, the only real outlier, as I'm aware of, is Nvidia, which reports at a totally different time to everyone else. For some reason, they've got a
Mm.
funny year end, perhaps. But I mean, the big tech earnings from last night, it, the numbers are just completely out of this world.
Mm.
But the capex continues to be gargantuan. Big tech now expects to spend $725 billion this year on AI related capex, and that's just those four companies, plus some of the
Which is
others.
larger than quite a few of the G20 GDP, by the way.
Yeah,
700 billion.
yeah.
Just you've
There
got
was
to
some.
try, because what's happening for me at least, and I think we're all a little bit guilty of this, as numbers climb, scale diminishes, right? I think right back to when I started out, I was building houses for these billionaires, and you you become slightly numb to stuff. You know, someone goes, "Oh, this tap is 2.5 grand," and you go, "Oh, great, yeah, pop it on the list," sort of thing, as if £2,500 for a tap is in any sensible world realistic.
Yeah,
But if you're doing 1 million a month in the revenue stuff, you kind of don't think about it. I think you have to keep remembering that they're going to spend $700 billion in this
yeah.
thing. That is incredible. I suppose the read for me, don't know what you take on it, is where, well, what does that signal? I'm kind of curious. That means they only see more and more and more demand for the compute behind all of this. And I sort of get that, but then there's been other stories about the have we overbuilt or catching up. I just think it's kind of interesting watching this story.
I think what's definitely the big thing that everyone wanted to see was what do the cloud revenue numbers look like? So what does Google Cloud, AWS, and Azure look like? And to put this into perspective, Google's cloud revenue grew 63% year on year, and it is now a
I
major
don't really
profit
understand
engine.
how. I mean, it was already
Yeah,
giant, wasn't it? How do you
yeah.
do 60 growth from that starting point?
And these are
Again, to
already,
get perspective, this isn't a startup doing a 60% increase in revenue, right? You're not that's 60% of a ginormous base. So
yeah,
we're up to almost half a trillion, right? Is that, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's
I mean,
incredible.
Google's cloud business alone would probably be a FTSE 10. That is how completely insane the whole
Yeah, I
thing
mean,
is.
referring back to Apple last week of
Yeah,
adding a shell a month for 10
yeah.
years. It's just incredible, isn't it?
But there were some nice quotes about the whole thing. One analyst commented, the bare thesis is garbage because clearly all the revenues are kind of going in line with where the capex should be. So Alphabet was the big winner. Meta, on the other hand, not the big winner. Saw a drop in users, big increase in capex. One investor commented, investors continue to be concerned about how Zuckerberg's once capital light money machine may be morphing into a capital intense incinerator, which I thought was a
Well, I mean, he
fairly
has come out of
eloquent.
a pretty brutal assessment
Yeah,
of after metaverse, right? So, I mean, I suppose
yeah,
he's got to get some. Yeah, I thought that was because I mean they beat on every single line.
yeah. But I mean, the expectations for all these companies is now just at a level that I mean, yeah, you just
Which
can't
is
even
interesting, right?
fathom.
Because okay, so let's just firstly, I suppose, yeah, to your point, the expectations. You know, if Alphabet managed to get Google Cloud up 63%, which is frankly almost feels unfathomable, then yeah, just to beat your earnings a little bit is hardly exciting at the moment. But if you just wind back a bit, it sort of has all the symptoms of the frothiness to me. It makes me a little bit nervous when you hear that. Not in the. It's obviously great news for now. That to your point about the bear case is silly. You think, oh, I don't know. And I suppose the only way to assess this, you've got to bring it right down to ultimately what is the economy. It's you and me going out spending and doing. And at my tiny micro level, obviously we also spend the GDP of a small country. Lol. But at my tiny micro level, the bill is just hinting at coming due for this AI, right? What I'm just starting to
Yeah,
see is okay, this token usage stuff, this is going to be quite expensive actually. Our software spend, which is something I've always tightly controlled, it's like, oh, this is moving up meaningfully. And of course, it's the promise of productivity. And don't get me wrong, in some ways, it certainly is. I had a dashboard sent to me yesterday evening by Ben that was just incredible. The thought that he'd been able to piece that together without developers, telling a story. Like, don't get me wrong, there's productivity in it, so we're hooked on that drug, but we have to link that productivity directly to revenue. I'm not saying our revenues have jumped in the short term, but the cost base for this stuff is coming due. And the reason I insert that is not, ultimately that is why somebody like Google Cloud's up 63%. But medium term, we're not going to keep scaling up our spending, right? So have we
no,
given a little in the last 6 months? We absolutely have. Am I willing to spend a bit more for that productivity? Yes, I am. But I'm not. There isn't room. There is a ceiling. There isn't room to just keep doing that. You're not going to turn the 200 subscription to 1,000 and divvy that out across everybody. It's just not going to happen. So I think
no.
there's a hesitation for me on some of this as to how long it can stay that frothy. But also, I suppose the counter narrative is that we're right at the or bleeding edge would be a little harsh, I guess. We're not, purely AI consultancy or something, but we do a lot of work with it and at a big level. I suppose the unused capacity is all the other companies that are still miles behind and yet to adopt it. And that would, I suppose, reflect an increase in revenue. So I could argue both sides, but from my little space here, I go, "Oof, this is starting to just feel like a stretch. I'm not going to spend this for every single team member. And we need to start
No.
controlling this and all those sorts of things."
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of as we talked about last week, Micron, SanDisk, all their share prices are up 100+% year to date. But of course, that is a bad thing for the likes of Meta and Google, as they're the ones who are basically having to eat the increased cost of how much memory and things like that are, now costing them, which is why their capex has gone up as memory spend is very high. So, and there's all these little
Yeah.
nuances. The other big news this week was the FTSE 100 sort of slightly being under foreign assault, as one person put it, as there are now four companies. So earlier in the year, Schroders is being sold to a foreign buyer, Beasley's being sold to a foreign buyer, and then Intertech and DCC are both private equity targets at the minute. So that's four companies basically out of the FTSE 100 that year to date are already either being sold or are in play. And the question is, what a from a valuation perspective, is this just because the London market is undervalued and looks cheap versus foreign competition? And what does it mean for the London Stock Exchange? Because obviously it's not great to have four of your largest companies kind of acquired and then nothing's coming back into the hopper. It's got to be refilled. So it's quite an existential moment for the stock exchange generally.
Yeah. There were a couple of things that struck me from this. Good, great news for the sellers. Good for them. Kind of bad news for the city, to your point, right? Overall. And um, the other piece is the fact that they are affordable. The fact that you can take some serious footsie players and just, oh yeah, we'll just take them private. I mean, it's the inverse of what we're talking about with 700 billion being spent on capex,
Yeah.
right? Mind blowing numbers there. You go, okay, well, for 700 billion, you could buy how much of the footsie 100? You know, it's like
Yeah.
we just don't have the hyperscaling going on, and we don't seem to be nurturing it. And if anything, this is a I just read it as a bad thing. I know that's a little harsh because you could argue, well, it's great that the market, the stock market, has brought people in. I understand sterling weakness probably helps, but the fundamental thing here is, as we said last week, the biggest winner in the UK market, 3i, was an investment case. We are as a country now really under pressure, I think, to start building things again properly and scaling things. And um, on the flip side, I'm an optimist. There is a moment here, an influx moment. We just talked about where the big guys are going, possibly worryingly unregulated in the way they're going there, by the way. Watched an interesting interview with Stephen Fry. I do love that man. And his take was, in all these things normally where there's an amazing piece of technology, we do understand the dangers in regulating. At the moment, there's just no one steering the ship. And I think that's quite an important point, especially at the speed it's
Yeah.
moving. But but the positive is any shift like this, and let's make no bones about it, it's a shift. We're in where it's already happening. It's not coming. It happens in ways that you possibly don't expect. It's easy when you look back in history to go, and this was the Industrial Revolution. I'm sure they didn't realize it at the moment. They just saw things changing iteratively. But at any moment like that, there is opportunity for new shoots and new people and new innovations. And I would say, historically, um, one of the reasons to be proud of being British is we're pretty good at innovation and coming up with concepts. When we tend to fail, if you look at my world of cars, is mass producing it. And I suppose that's a similar thing, right? We come up with some really
Yeah.
interesting concepts, and we don't seem as good at really truly hyperscaling them. I think we've got to try and work that out. And so my point would be, maybe AI is actually a gift for that type of work. Maybe AI could unlock a few, but we've definitely got to work out how to harness it. I think there's no doubt this puts pressure on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and so that's the big news this week in the market. The other one, going from AI to miniature pieces of orcs and space marines, and you couldn't get more analog than that, is one of the largest UK stock market winners of the last 10 years. This week we're going to discuss Games Workshop, which is obviously everyone sees that shop on its high street. And I'll be honest, the one in Guildford, there's always people in it. There's always people coming in, coming out. The shares are up 4,000% in the last 10 years. Um, and the thing which I would
I,
say is
I,
most astonishing
yeah,
about this business is they completely buck the trend in terms of how most London listed companies operate. They do not have, as far as I'm aware, a public relations firm who helps them with anything. The
mm,
CEO, Kevin Roundtree, I don't think has ever been photographed publicly other than being in and around their AGMs and things like that. I mean, he does not do big capital market day results days, etc. But they just get on with it, quietly deliver. They highly incentivize their staff. So their staff shared a £20 million bonus pool this year, which is £6,000 each, basically, in terms of how it pro
wow.
ratas down. And I think the management's separate to that. That is the employees rather than the
Yeah.
management team. So they really look after their staff. But yeah, I mean, who would have thought that would be one of the big winners of the UK market?
Yeah, it's really interesting that you brought this one in for this week, because literally 10 days ago or so, I walked past one of those and went, bloody hell, they're still going. You sort of think, how is that possible? Then you hear this statistic, I go, my God, not only it's still going, they're absolutely killing it. Talk about flying under my radar. Absolutely no knowledge of that. To, admit your weaknesses here, no concept of it. And then I paused for a second and thought, actually, this feeds into a thread for me of stuff that I suspect could do really well for the next decade. Certainly, I'm experiencing it. Most of the guys and girls, by the way, that I talk to are having some sort of similar um, experience of the sort of fatigue and it's relentless. AI has made your computer almost a bit overwhelming at the speed it can do things. Your brain can barely keep up, type of a narrative. So in that world, the idea of just sitting down quietly. When I was a kid, I used to love racing remote control cars. In fact, I'm such a geek and a loser. I used to compete. I was the south of Wickham or some tiny subset champion for a day or so. I loved it. I used to get these mini Mar days. They were called carpet races. My poor mother driving me to some dingy industrial warehouse to let me play these things. I can still remember the chips. They were great. But the point, I still found joy. So when my daughter was born, one of the things, and we had lockdown, etc., is I bought a little remote control car again, but I wanted it in full kit form, so putting it together. The point is, there is something lovely about that peace, that calm, that
Mm,
sort of thing. And I suppose this type of business in a world that's kind of chaos, that has a community, and I think that's a really important part of this,
yeah.
has a genuine community. So it's encouraging socializing as well as enabling your introverted side to get something lovely and just make it. It's not for everyone, of course. I would never have the patience to paint those tiny details on them, but I sort of went, oh, hang on, maybe if it was, if I was inclined to think that was my thing, yeah, you sort of start to get it a bit. You go, actually, they could be in for a really great few years because they're
Yeah.
totally uninterrupted by AI and all this other stuff we're talking about. This is just a nice, quiet, human thing to do. And so, yeah, that a brilliant one to bring up. And yeah, next time you're walking past it in a high street, encourage you all to go and pop into Games Workshop, see what's going on. I
Yeah.
remember they had a sort of protractor thing, didn't they, for where you could strike? Because I did do this as a kid for 6 months or something. It was the thing at school.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting business. Everyone's seen them, but yeah, they don't do things the same way every other company does.
At the one end, we've just talked about 700 billion. I've actually managed to find a statistic because I had the GDP. But just to give you some specific context, 700 billion is more than the annual GDP of Switzerland or Saudi
Wow.
Arabia. We're not talking about,
No.
Liechtenstein or something, Switzerland. We are literally watching the largest industrial build out, really, in
Mm.
history, right? I mean, this is internet 2.0 as a parallel. Will it follow that trend? It's obviously the question on everybody's lips. Will we see the dot-com bubble type thing? Well, that's what everybody is speculating, trying to ruminate about. And set against that is this rather lovely, let's look after our own, build a community, be humans, Games Workshop story. And I know
Yeah.
which one I prefer. So good for them. And I wish them another 4,000 in the next 10 years because it's great. It's a really nice story. Um, which then, yes, as you say, next thing is we last week we talked about sort of a big topic, and this week at work, and we chatted over and went, you know what, I think they're kind of, let's blend those together and just bring our own to the table. So, Jimmy, over the course of this week, what have you been thinking about, ruminating on, want to share?
The thing which I've really noticed, and I'd say is in the last 2 weeks, is the amount of in-person events that either we are being asked to do proposals for,
Hmm.
because at Corpcast, events have always been something where they're completely under leveraged. You take a bunch of people, you spend a load of money on an event, whether it's a capital market day, a results presentation, or some form of conference, and there's a big build up to it. It happens on the day, and only the people who were there in the room realize all the hard work and effort and the learnings and this, that, and the other that come from it. And so we're trying to get people to understand that providing content on the day is a really nice way of breaking up what can occasionally seem like very long, lengthy presentations where you're listening to the same thing and over a multi-hour window, it can get quite draining. But also filming content on the day that you can use for weeks and months after it because you've already put all the effort in. So why would you just not maximize the benefit of hosting an event?
Yeah.
And but it does feel like whether it's being invited to nice networking events of an evening or people doing a golf day or something like that, I've definitely had more emails in the last 2 weeks about these
Cheeky
kinds of
golf day,
things.
Jimmy's favourite.
Yeah,
For all the
exactly.
shit you give Collins about being on holiday, this is a man who's permanently on a golf course. And he's still rubbish, by the way, as far as I can tell.
That's really the bad bit.
Yeah. It's been 5 years now of entertaining clients at a golf course, and I still just take a massive divot and leave the ball
Yeah.
alone. Yeah. Look, I think interesting one, really related, actually, something we spoke about in the past about well, it feeds very similarly into that human story for Games Workshop for me. I think maybe it's my soapbox as opposed to the trend, but get the feeling that as the computers take over type of thing, the human element in us all will be more important, or I certainly hope it will be. I hope we don't lose touch. There's a lot there's a lot to admire generally as well as dislike, but about Scott Galloway, Prof G Media, I'm sure quite a few of you are aware, amazing YouTube channel. But one of his big rants is that social media is here to steal the attention and effectively a generation, right? They are not, it's not, it almost when you hear it sounds like it's malicious. It's not, it's the result of allowing unregulated profit seeking from social media, and their job therefore is to get your attention. So if all they want is your attention, they're going to allow, and we've got a whole generation of, is it NEETs, not in education, something or training, employment, education or training. So there's a whole
Yeah.
generation of people who've gone, actually, I think instead I can sort of have a pretty good proxy of a life online and all those sorts of negative pieces. And in that suddenly, and we actually just did a massive conference filming all those sorts of things. And you're absolutely right on both counts. One is I think they remain really important. I think they will get more and more important to us all as people. It's fun, it was fun. It was nice to be together. You had all the buzz and the rush to it, to the build up. You spend sort of 4 or 5 days working crazy hours all in the trenches together, and then get too drunk on the last night and pass out and wake up feeling dreadful because you were already tired and all that. It's a lovely cycle, that whole putting them on, and everybody. I'm talking delegates and staff all there together in that environment.
Yeah.
And then crucially, and I think what's interesting here, it may be there are people going, oh, yeah, but we want to encourage people to be in the room. That's always the counter narrative I hear. Oh, if we give all the content away, people won't come. I just, sorry, it's just not true. People come because of the relationship building and the networking. You can, by all means, put a delay on the release of key information so that for people that have paid to be there, because obviously there's more cost involved, they're getting an edge. But so much of what they're getting for coming is the surround to what happens on
Of
stage.
course.
The big thing, though, is absolutely how underutilized it is. But Capital Markets Days, massively so, right? It's not easy to get all of the right key people in your company together in the same place on the same day with a prescribed narrative where we're all cohesive. What an opportunity to be getting content to feed out over social. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think we'll see more of it, and I think we'll continue to go to them. It was one of my sort of New Year's things: keep attending more face to face, keeping, yeah, staying human, I suppose, not letting ourselves become AI. Basically, implements or input. It's like
Yeah.
Christ. I feel like I'm owned by the AI already. It barely even started in this revolution. It's probably quite a good segue into my take for the week, which is AI going to take all of our jobs? It feels like, I don't know whether this is just my mother sending them to me, but it's every single article I get at the
I
moment.
know.
My daughter wants a career that survives AI, so I did the research. Anthropic CEOs come out and said this. Da, 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 da. Uh, the honest answer is, in my opinion, yes. And then by proxy, of course, no.
Yeah.
There is absolutely a need for all the things we're doing. Is it supercharging us in some places? Yes. Is it actually arguably, I think I've lost some time of late to building things that were false hope and things like that. But that is very much, I think, while it's formative, I'm absolutely sure that we don't even know the ways in which it's going to change things
Of course.
yet, properly, fully. I mean, can you imagine when they first released the car, that that anybody could have imagined that there'd be those amazing machines in Japan that take cars and stack them into multi-story car parks. Like, we would literally build our entire built environment around the car. It's like, come on, it's incredible. I so that this is going to change the way that we do things. My hypothesis at the moment is actually very interlinked to the events in the human story, and that is that I think it might enable or empower us to be freed from our computers. Maybe that's the optimist in me. It's certainly what I hope. We have, if you track sort of the tech revolution, we used to go out and do things, and then we'd write them down and make notes of the sort of things. And then the platforms themselves, if you go back to Excel, you suddenly found that people that probably previously would have gone out to do X or Y were now inputting that data a lot. If you are freed from having to do that, so you could just, as I do, Ben does, and you do, you're dictating something, or maybe you're typing it, but increasingly just dictating, keeping it up to speed, with your life as this side piece, it for me, it looks like there'd be an opportunity to be free from that. But there is no doubt that within that, there are all sorts of professions that disappear or at least change completely,
Yeah.
very much. So, but all I can say is at the end of the day, I urge on the side of being optimistic. You can't spend your whole life being a realist here. Yeah, there may be some things, and it may be that, and I feel it. I feel it challenging the way we do business and informing the way we approach Courtcast as we build it. It's like, how do we build this the right way? What's the right thing? What's the real value we're offering if this and this becomes easier? But I still see absolute value there. So it's not like it's gone.
Yeah.
It's just adapting. And it's not easy, is it, to be asked to adapt? And it can feel a bit scary. And I understand there must be lots of people who are feeling that. We certainly have those moments. But ultimately, it will just change the way we do things, like the built environment, like the multi-story car parks, like the thing that we will build an infrastructure around it. My hope, my sincere hope, is one of the things it will do is free us a little from our computers and our screens in due course, because it can just do that in the background. And in a really, really small, micro thing, how cool would it be to never do a tax return again?
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, the argument I hear a lot is there's sort of two ends of the spectrum. Um, for instance, my brother-in-law is a fishmonger.
Mm,
I is not going to replace his job.
no.
Um, However, and then
He's
at the
also
other end,
very
there's the very,
charismatic fishmonger. Incredible guy.
and then at the other end, you have the very tech-focused people who are obviously optimizing, building, etc. But in the middle ground, there's kind of who is going to get disrupted, who's going to get displaced. And of course, it's difficult because the media loves headlines. But so it's that sort of thing of, the admin function, the accounting function, the legal function, the you name it, that sort of slightly middle ground where you do utilize a bit of software and tech, but also there's kind of a bit of a personal element where in that is going to be disrupted. And I think, if you read the Daily Mail, the whole thing's going and it'll be, one big bonfire of jobs. But historically, every time there's been a revolution, yes, jobs have been either made obsolete, but then new jobs have been created. So I can't see there's going to be this sort of like 50% unemployment rate like some people tell you about. But
Look, I don't know what your take is, but that the steam fry regulation thing comes to mind here. I do think there is an argument to say, should we be considering appropriate? And I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm such a free market person at core, but should we be considering the right checks and balances for this whole ecosystem infrastructure? We haven't even look at how much has been done in the last few years on GDPR. I mean, personally, I think it's a bit surface and a bit rubbish. But at least the principle of, should we give people some control over their data? God
yeah,
knows what's going on with this at the moment. I mean, or rather, we all know exactly what's going on. Everybody's just giving it up, us included, typing away and feeding these massive machines. Um, and these big tech, the sorts of people that can spend the GDP of Switzerland on infrastructure build out. You got to be real careful with that kind of thing, right? You give too much power to them, we could become beholden. So I suspect if left completely unchecked, it could wreak more havoc than is necessary. And that's not to say, I want to limit progress. I don't know. Yeah, look, it's an imperfectly formed thing in my mind, but there is definitely a sense. I think there maybe needs to be a little bit more conscious thought about it. I mean, you only have to go
yeah,
back to Sam Altman's original thesis here that it was going to be a not-for-profit to protect the world from the potential of the whole thing. I mean,
yeah,
talk about bloody U-turn when he was offered a private island and a jet. But but nevertheless, actually, I think some of what he's talking about there feels important to revisit about what it does to society, just like social media, just like we're talking about. It's important to think about what's that doing. It worries the hell out of me as a father of a 6-year-old girl, just how consuming that could be for her life and how we could. So, yeah, yeah. Let's see. Is it coming? Yes, but also no. And we'll live through it, and exciting things will happen.
yeah.
Okay, shall we move on to some slightly cheerier topics now then?
Yeah, why not?
So, obviously, every week I plan, as you do, how to spend all the millions that AI has made me, and how to spend
Yeah,
my time when I'm got nothing to do because AI is running my
unemployed.
life. Uh, fun employed, I thought it was. Hang on, whoa! Don't take that away from me. And we will start. Shall we start with cars? Cars I watched? I think we start with car. Car that you bought this week. Give me a story. What have you been thinking about? Why?
The car that I bought this week is a car that you and I talk about an awful lot, um,
Well, that's narrowed
because
it down to all of the cars.
yeah, because it is so difficult to think of a car that is better as a daily, but also is luxurious, refined. It's got a bit of speed to it. You don't. It's not so ostentatious that you're driving around and it's all kind of like
I think
flashbangs
you're
everywhere.
going to hit me with, and it's either S-Class coupe or it's a certain type of Bentley. Am I
You're
close?
right with the latter.
Yes.
The and I'll put it on my screen now. And this is the other thing is I can't actually believe what these things have gone down to. Um, but this is
Mm.
obviously a very pretty convertible car. Look at that.
It's
I
true, though.
mean,
They
considering
are
I have
so
a
tempting.
yeah, I mean the cream leather with my 6-year old who eats ice creams 5 times a
Mm.
day is just a guaranteed problem. But I
Mate, I've
can't
seen the
believe
inside
where
of
these cars have
your
gone to.
cars. They're absolutely disgusting. You would destroy that. I mean, you would almost should be banned from owning a cream interior, to be honest.
But I mean, they are, and the thing that I can't really get over is the cost. I mean,
Yeah, go on.
considering
How
this
much
thing
is
has
this?
only done 27,000 miles
Oh.
in 15 years, it's £40,000,
Mm, it's a lot of car.
which is it's a lot of car for the money,
Yeah,
I would
yeah, I
say.
like it. The only thing that keeps putting you off is we've all got to be very grateful to Neil Clifford, really, is the idiot canary down the coal mine who's just bought one of these and immediately found out it was more than the cost of the car to replace the headlights.
Oh God, yeah,
Now,
that's well,
admittedly, he didn't
that
buy it
is
for 40
definitely
grand. It
the
was more like 10. He bought
no,
a proper original GT coupe sort of thing. But yeah, that is ultimately why they're there in price. But I agree with you. I mean, the other thing is, we talk about Pete Car a lot. The cars just haven't improved in my mind from there. It's all so marginal. That is a really cool car, and one you could keep fixing and repairing, keep on the road for another 15 minutes. Yeah, it's a good choice.
yeah,
Choice. Okay. So we know where you've been. I mean, the other thing is quite a lot of choice, right? If you've got quite
yeah.
a long short list in your Auto Trader app now, I'm guessing you do, because there's a lot of them.
There are, I mean that's the other thing is I imagine that's probably I haven't spoken to the dealer, but I'm pretty
Mm.
sure if you phoned up and said, look, there's 300 of these things listed, actually, I want to negotiate a bit. I'm pretty sure they'd have some room on it.
Yeah, I mean, that, of course, is the victim of their own success. I remember when that car was launched and started flying out, and everyone just went, it was such a ginormous success for Bentley and such a
Yeah,
punch in the nose for Aston because, they didn't start on par quite, but, they were kind of there and there. And Bentley just nailed it. And if you look at the comparative fortunes since, that I think that car is completely instrumental, but therefore they sold loads of them. And therefore there are, yeah, I guess that's what helps keep the values down there. Well, I
yeah.
could not be more different from that. So we're in a good space. This started with Goodwood members meeting in my mind. It planted the seed. The last time,
Ooh.
I think it was members meeting rather than revival. Went with the lovely Mark, so a mate of mine from Crondall, from the village, who owns Webs of Weybridge, which is a car hire thing. And I've actually we're gonna give him a plug here to our giant car hiring
Following.
audience. Right, hang on, here we go. And he rocked up so that we could
Oh
drive
yeah.
together in an MG8. Now, listen, I'll be honest, I hadn't even engaged with this car in the slight. I mean, I knew they made an MGA. I know that my mum used to have an MGB GT, and then that was kind of fun, but a bit rubbish. This thing, on the English country roads is the right size, it's the right speed, it's absolute just a sweetheart. So then that has sent me into obviously the world of car and classic and found, whoop, share this tab. Look at this little
Wow.
minter.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean,
Green on
wow.
tan is such a good look.
Green on. I mean, I will say, I think the MGA may be one of a hand. I couldn't get more past five cars. I think actually looks good in white. It really does suit white. And we have a good friend from university, actually, Charles Crane, who has one of these. I keep seeing it pop up on Instagram. I think, oh, you sod, that's a really great car. What a choice.
Yeah, it's
Um,
so pretty.
but this is good, isn't it? So
Yeah.
we are literally, well, we're actually heavily delayed on planning our trip to Le Mans this year. We've got tickets, but not really thought it through. And I just had it in my head that I wanted to buy this and use it to take to Le Mans. I suspect we will instead be in a slightly disreputable Corniche, which will be even more joyous. But this is, I just thought this colour, this spec, I was totally sold. Look at it. Look how
And
clean the engine is.
what has happened with the values of these things?
As far as I can see, pretty stagnant. You know, they're just worth what they're
Yeah.
worth. You can there's a little bit of geeky nuance. I remember Mark telling me about the engine. So there was a slightly hotter engine, and those will go for a bit
Okay.
more. And like all of these things, they're three times the price in Europe. And you think, what? Why is that? How does that work? Um, but yeah, I just thought that's that. Yeah, and oh, can you just you can see it now? But I really think that it's one of those that gets overlooked. The value,
Yeah.
you know, an Austin Healey 80, 90 grand. That's every bit as fun, actually,
Yeah.
to drive around in. And yeah, so you go, car of the week.
Yeah. I, as a daily, I know which one I'd prefer to have. But as a little pootler down to the pub, I also know which one I'd prefer to have.
Yeah. Okay, so for our last topic, we have absolutely ripped off my favourite podcast. Apologies, Chris Harris, but we have at least applied it to a different topic. I love the two car garage. It's one of my great joys. Listen to them work out what they're going to do each week. So we thought, well, hang on a minute. We have a watch segment. Let's get the
Yeah.
two bay watch garage going on. So for our listeners this week, we have decided Mr. Lee, your challenge is you are a pilot. You could be a pilot in any era, by the way. We didn't
Yeah.
specify this, but you are a pilot and you need to choose the perfect two watches. You need something daily and something fancy for the weekends.
Yeah.
If we were doing the car equivalent, you need a convertible, but that doesn't really work here. So you let off a convertible. I would like to know what your perfect pilot two watch garage looks like.
Yeah, you see, it's one of those things with watches of I think the travel time function is arguably one of the more useful out of all the different watch complications you can have. I mean,
All the
if
rubbish they've come
you
up with to sell you.
I mean, if you had told me I was an astronomer, then maybe a perpetual calendar would have come in use. But general everyday life, I don't really need to know where the moon is in sort of navigation around the Earth. Whereas the travel
Do you
time,
not?
you know, I mean, we deal with lots of people in lots of different time zones.
Yeah.
They're functional, they're good looking, and so I've always enjoyed them. The company that I would argue has probably done it best is
This is a
Rolex.
statement. Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
so my everyday sort of watch is actually the watch my late father got me for my 21st birthday, which I will bring up now, and
good
it is
Lord.
the original Rolex GMT Master 2. So you can see there the green hand is the one which basically gives you two different time zones. So if you happen to be in London, but you're
Happen to be in
flying
London.
into
Happen to be over here.
yeah, if you're flying into Cape Town or something, then obviously these types of complications are incredibly helpful. But I do just think as a
Hang
watch,
on, is this your
uh,
special watch or your daily?
no,
It's
this
got
is
to
the
be your
daily.
daily.
This is
It's
the
got to
this is
be.
the daily watch. I mean, mine was beaten to a pulp, and it still doesn't look terrible. Yes, of course, it's very scratched and all the
No, but
rest of
I
it, and
would
I've
actually
lost.
say that's the one thing that stands out for me about that watch. You're absolutely right. You have worn that to do kind of anything for a very long time. I would
Yeah.
argue that that watch is literally the Porsche 911 of watches. It's for me. It's
Yeah.
like you need that watch in a 911, and you have completed the City Boy look. But granted, anyway, go on. We'll let you keep going. But I think there's something about the. It's very good, but you're slightly limited on time zones there. You're a pilot. You're jumping
Yes.
between more than two. I don't know, but
Well,
I think I would
well,
wear
for my
one.
next watch,
Okay, yeah, for my next trick, sir.
can I please introduce you to the Patek Philippe World Time, which,
Oh
as you can
God!
see, gives you an awful lot of time zones to choose from.
Unless I'm
Uh,
mistaken, this is the watch that a friend of ours has bought a terrible fake copy of, isn't it?
yes, I think you could be right.
Which you can see is not real from at least 100 meters.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But I think these are. I mean, they've since been. I prefer the rose gold one over over the sort of white metals, as it were, the white gold, the platinum. I just think it looks a bit nicer. But
yeah,
these have since been discontinued. But I mean, that is what a watch!
that is
What a
it's
watch!
just stunning. It's one of the
Exhibition
few times
case
I would
back.
absolutely, yeah, it's just
Yeah,
incredible work of art and engineering.
yeah.
And yeah, the only
And
problem with
so,
that watch, of course, is you just couldn't wear it. You'd be so terrified of doing it up, but
yeah.
it's fabulous. Yeah.
No, I mean the issue also with those watches, I suppose, is quite similar to the Continental comment you made of if anything goes wrong with that, you know it's going to take a year and a lot of pounds sterling to fix.
I don't even want to think about something going wrong with that. I
No,
hadn't thought of that. I don't think, do you know,
yeah,
it's interesting. I don't really think about what just go wrong. I really do, and then it hurts, but I don't really think about it in advance the same way. Well, as you can imagine, I've done this very differently to you. For
of
me,
course you have.
I was a pilot. There's only one thing that's important here, and that's sex appeal. And he was the sexiest pilot. Well, obviously it's Top Gun, isn't it? So the
Yep.
first, so the first watch that I bought for my pilot was this, which is of course the original Kawasaki Ninja from Top Gun.
Oh yes.
Um, yeah, so that was, that didn't take me long. I'll be honest with you. I absolutely promise you, I did not mean to pick two watches from the same brand, but I couldn't help it. I immediately went, oh, remind what was the we've got to start with Top Gun, which means, I'll be a bit more sincere here. I actually do personally love this watch. And for a
Hmm.
daily price point, a bit like the Rolex ability to take a beating, the pilot connotations as opposed to real provenance, I think is kind of fun. Yeah, I've quite fancied one of these for a while. Actually, it's almost this has slipped into the watches I bought this week kind of a vibe because I think, oh, actually, yeah, I could quite see this. And ultimately your Top Gun. But whilst searching for it, I found my dress watch equivalent. Now, I will admit that it doesn't hold up well to the multi time zone kind of thing, but it is specifically a pilot's watch.
Okay.
And I suppose for me, it was just I was going through, looking at variations, and then went, oh no, I've got to keep the OG, which was showing here. That would be the daily beta kind of a thing. But this just really struck me. It's a watch I hadn't even heard of actually before going down this rabbit hole, and I just found myself going, "Is that Sharon? Is it swapped over?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Pilot's Watch Venture Vertical Drive. I just think this is
yeah.
stunning, absolutely beautiful, elegant, wonderful, and it says pilots in the title, so it counts.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this watch, because it's almost. I mean, IWC famously does what's called the big pilot, which is
Yeah,
if you're a John Mayer fan and he's a complete watch fanatic,
he is.
the big pilot watches kind of hit. But for you and I, with our dainty wrists, we couldn't wear it because they are. I want to say they're 44 mil and they're pretty big watches. Whereas your choice is so
I
Jeremy
just
Clarkson has your first choice.
Yeah,
Whether
yeah. I mean,
whether you
which
do
did put me off it a little bit, but
it.
we'll let him off. But I think he's got a Navitimer as well, and obviously Breitling Navitimer was actually the first watch I ever coveted as a kid. The Breitling Navitimer,
Was it?
and
Okay.
that's the obvious classic multi-time zone watch. But these days I struggle to love those. There's just a bit too much going on, and again, size-wise, they're big, aren't they?
Yeah.
That I think it's a stretch to say that's really a pilot's watch, but fuck it, I liked it, and it says pilot in the title.
It slightly reminds me of you get what a lot of watch companies do is they do these so-called concept watches. So Audemars
Mm,
Piguet does a lot of them, and they basically use it as an excuse to push the horological technology as far as they can, and that
max.
IWC reminds me of
Yeah.
those watches.
It has that kind of feel.
Um,
So there you go. So I am, in fact, on my Ninja, wearing my pilot watch with the jacket on, looking absolutely nothing like and getting laid absolutely nothing like Tom Cruise.
I think is it the 40th anniversary of Top Gun? I keep saying they're going to re-release a high
For
definition
any
version of
excuse
it
to
or
keep
something.
milking that thing. Did you like
Yeah.
the remake? Did you like the remake?
The original I remember seeing as a kid and thinking it was the single coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life,
Ever.
whereas
Agreed.
the remake I just couldn't quite wrap my head around.
No. No, controversial. That most people I talk to think it was great, but it didn't do it for me. Anyway, there you go. That wraps up episode 12 of Snakes and Ladders. Thank you very much, buddy. Hope we ended on a slightly higher than we
Yeah.
started with our AI job section.
Yeah.
We did this, we were up. We've taken you on a journey. We will see you again next week. Have a fantastic weekend.